Hello and welcome to another edition of Agenda 2063 TV show, the only show in Ghana, the region, continent, telling you authentic stories about Africa's integration, but also about larger picture of Agenda 2063. Although we spend the better part talking about issues related to the African Continental Free Trade Area, we're always going to return to the issue of Agenda 2063, reason for which the show is here and reason for which we will need to know the Africa we want. So we're very happy to be coming to you, to your homes, to your laptops once again, and we hope to be able to give you another fine edition. But we're going to take a break in a minute, and when we return, give you two excellent segments. We'll be right back. So welcome back from the break, and today, first segment, we start off with APRM Watch. This is a space where we give you updates on developments around the African peer review mechanism. And there's a bit of good news and just general news, but it's going to be quite short today. Most important thing we'll start off with is the good news that Uganda's Africa Peer Review Mechanism report has shone the brightest on the continent. It was praised for making strides on promotion of women's rights through establishing a requisite legal regime. Also credited was its devolution of power to local government, plus a whole host of other positive things there's not enough time to talk about. Last week, the Africa Peer Review Mechanism Youth Network held a webinar that explored the role of civil society in strengthening democracy and good governance in East Africa during, post, and beyond COVID-19 pandemic. We understand the webinar went quite well, very well attended, and a lot of very interesting things were said, which will form the basis of important reports going forward. Finally, as the Africa Peer Review Mechanism prepares itself for South African review in a couple of weeks' time, the WhatsApp group that has been set up in preparation for all these monitoring has been really buzzing up and down on discussions by youth about modalities for the preparations. They're very keen to know exactly how they can participate and also what they can do to make sure that it is a constructive and holistic review for the country. So that's all that we have for you this week on Africa Peer Review Mechanism. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with the next edition or next segment, which is the Ear on East Africa. We'll be right back. All right, so welcome back from the break, and it's always a pleasure to be giving you updates on developments around East Africa. This one, I really want to say thank you for Beverly Ashen giving us this segment, producing this segment. So we're going to start off with the economic front, where mobile money fraud hack has plunged Uganda's banks into chaos. There's been a lot of noise around mobile money all over the place, but in Uganda in particular, the majority of Ugandans don't really have a bank account, and mobile money services are very useful for them. It's widely patronized because of its convenience. Mobile money payments are largely used in agriculture, energy, health, and education. At least $3.2 million is estimated to have been stolen in the latest incident, which occurred on October 3rd. According to local papers, the hackers used around 2,000 mobile money SIM cards to gain access to the mobile money payment system. Then they instructed the telecommunication companies, who then paid out mobile money to these different SIM cards across the country. From investigations, at least two suspects linked to the Kampala-based Pegasus Technologies have been arrested. We thank God for that. We must be careful not to have something like that happen in different African countries, especially Ghana. We turn to security, where Egypt is seeking Kenya's help in a row with Ethiopia over the Nile Dam. Now, stopping over in Egypt from his trip to France, President Kenyatta and his host Abdel Fattah al-Sisi have agreed to work closely on the issue of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. After meeting for talks in Egypt, Egyptians are seeking Kenya's support since the Nile, which is Africa's longest river, has a basin that includes Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, South Sudan, Rwanda, Burundi, and the DR Congo. Egypt sees the construction of the Ethiopian dam on the Blue Nile, which contributes 85% of the River Nile waters, as a risk to future source of water for irrigation, hydropower generation, and domestic use. So there's some water politics going on, which we hope that they will put an end to. But in July, Ethiopia went ahead to fill a portion of the completed dam reservoir in defiance of Sudan and Egypt's warnings not to do so, without an agreement. Khartoum and Cairo fear that Ethiopia's 4.8 billion mega dam project will eventually diminish their historic water share from the Nile River. So there's a lot of issues going on around this whole issue of Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, a lot of water politics, and it's still unfolding. It's still going to play out, and we'll definitely be giving you updates. But what you need to know as we come to a conclusion on this particular story is that Kenya is, however, of the view that external entities like the AU may be able to help come to a solution if this water politics keeps going up and down, because they're not quite sure whether it's all going. But water should not be a problem. It shouldn't be a source for politics. Water is a common good for everybody. And if it's uniting countries, it should do so. And it should not be causing conflict. So we hope to give you better stories and better updates on this Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam over the next couple of weeks, so that we can all finally breathe a huge sigh of relief that water is going to bring us together rather than divide us. So thank you for that. We're going to take a break in a minute, and we'll take you straight into the important guests who will be speaking to us about volunteering, African Union, Agenda 2063, and the African Continental Free Trade Area. Thank you. I will be right back. Welcome back from the break. Nice to have my two guests in the studio. It's been a while since I had two guests, for obvious reasons. Corona, threw, us all asunder. But hopefully we're getting things back to normal. And so we'll be able to have more than two guests over the next couple of weeks as well in subsequent discussions. But the most important thing today is the topic. And I'd like to think that this topic is an unusual one in the sense that we don't, when we think about this theme, there are so many different ways of approaching it. A lot of us have issues around volunteering, because when we talk about volunteerism, we feel that it's volunteerism with indefinitely. What we're trying to do with today's edition is to say that for a cause that is bigger than yourself, so African Continental Free Trade Area, the AU, ECOWAS, whatever, you're volunteering for something. But what are some of the things that are motivating you to continue volunteering, hoping that things will change, but also knowing that even if things do not change, you are building some kind of profile portfolio? That's what we're trying to achieve with today's edition, where we're talking about AfCFTA, volunteerism, and Agenda 2063. So the two guests in the studio are here to help us demystify and unpack that in a particular way, particularly because both of them are part of the AfCFTA Policy Network volunteer scheme, which has been running for quite a while, since the network was set up a year ago. But the whole idea with the AfCFTA Policy Network, we understand, is that is an opportunity for people to also gain some appreciation of what is, of how the African diplomatic community works, how African Continental Free Trade Area works, as well as how Agenda 2063 pans out in this whole discussion. So it's important to hear all these things from the horse's mouth, and that's why we have Charlene, Asiedu, and then we also have Audrey Biney to help us do that. So I'm not going to ask who will go first. I'll just first of all start off with Charlene. Charlene, nice to have you in the studios
Hi,
of
Emmanuel. Nice to be here as well.
Okay, and thank you very much for taking the time out, because we know that you have other things to do. Just because you're a volunteer for the Policy Network doesn't mean that you don't have other things to do as well. That's what we're trying to unpack and reveal for a lot of people as well. That you decided, knowing that the AfCFTA Policy Network you're going to be volunteering your time. There's not going to be any pay at the end of it, but you felt that you would still go for it. What was the motivation for you?
Well, okay, so the aim of the AfCFTA Policy Network aligns with my goals. So, okay, first of all, let me talk about myself.
Sure.
I am currently a master's student. I'm studying international affairs. I have a background in sociology and Arabic, and I am trying to take a diplomatic path. So I feel that this policy network offers me the opportunity to meet certain people who have already been in the field for long, and then allows me to also network, connect, and then gain experience, of course, in the field. Because I'm currently unemployed and I need this. Actually helps to better my profile. Yeah. So that's really the aim of this.
I'd like to say that you're not unemployed, you're a consultant. I think that's, someone told me that that's the consultant is a euphemism for being unemployed. Because really, if you think about it, there's so many entrepreneurs around these days. Entrepreneurs are also jobless. They're looking for, so... you can pat yourself on the back a little. It's not you're not jobless. You do have something to do. You are a consultant, and you're an Arabic scholar. We'll come back to that. The language is very important. Let's shift over to you, Audrey, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself, and also the motivation, and maybe the expectation of because you've been around for a while, and you would know that volunteerism in different shapes and forms. Sometimes there are positions where there's volunteer, but there's pay at the end, but it's just called volunteer. The UN is like that, the ECOWAS is also like that. But there are different forms, and unfortunately, too many people end up exploiting interns and volunteers. And if you're not careful, you will need to watch out for that. So that's one of the things that we want this show to also help people understand that, yes, exploitation does happen, but it's also important to be mindful. You also have to keep yourself in check and make sure that, where you are working, the place that you're working for is relatively acceptable and aligns, as she said, with your goals. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I am not youth. I'm so flattered that you call me youth volunteer.
I see. Okay.
But so my background really is healthcare, biochemistry. So I worked in the pharmaceutical industry for many years. In various jobs within the pharmaceutical industry, including policy making, health education, all sorts of different areas. But that was in the UK. It wasn't in Ghana. And then moved to Ghana. And was still involved with a lot of healthcare in rural communities. So I was part of an NGO, which there's quite an element of volunteering there as well, because again, that's an NGO who didn't have a huge budget, so it was tight, but I did it because I had a passion for health. So we used to fly into communities that were cut off because road systems wouldn't get to them. These communities are basically forgotten communities in Ghana. So this NGO that I worked with had 2-seater aircrafts. They used to build aircrafts and do, it was really interesting. So we used to fly in to these communities and offer health education, sometimes even proper education as well, trying to make sure the kids go to school. And we would do train-the-trainer programs as well. So we would train the actual medical people who were on site so that they could carry on the training. So we do first aid training, we would do women's health, we did all sorts of different things like that. So I did that for quite a while, very fulfilling. And then the NGO kind of went down a little bit, so that kind of moved on. I still carried on doing it to an extent. But more recently, entrepreneur. But we have our own business. I have my own business as well. We do real estate development. So I'm focusing a little bit more on that. But my passion really is in healthcare, and I'm really passionate about what the outfits, the AfCFTA Policy Network is doing. I see the bigger picture. I see Agenda 2063. I see the Africa that we want, and I want the same thing. And if it means that I have to sacrifice some of my time to make that happen, then that really is. Really, because I think that I have skills to bring to the table, and also I have a lot to learn.
Yeah.
So I think I'm adding value to myself, but also to a small extent also to the organisation, and that really is, I don't see it as an unpaid job per se. I see it more as something that is leading to a bigger picture, not only for myself, but the bigger agenda of Agenda 2063.
Let's stick a bit with what you were doing before, flying into communities. Already that entails a high level of risk, because you don't know whether you're going to make it out of that plane.
I'll tell you something. We used to land on water a lot of the time because they wouldn't have cleared the path for us to get there. So we used to land on water.
Yeah.
And then sometimes there'll be sticks in the water and the rudders will get damaged. And we'll do this trip and come back. And then Jonathan, who was the gentleman I was working with, the damage to the plane, there's all sorts of problems. Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I like a thrill. So for me, it was exciting flying into, I got the opportunity to handle the controls at some stage as well. So do this, do that. So there was an excitement in there as well. But for me, it was more going into the communities and seeing just the fact that we have gone in, we spent our time and our resources to go in. Yeah. You can't put a price on that. For me, that was really rewarding to go in and do that type of work.
So it's probably the intrinsic, let's say, what they call the intrinsic satisfaction. Yeah, let's put it that way. Yeah. But nonetheless, I think it's important to speak a little about that level of risk, because in any kind of volunteering that you do, you're risking something. Yeah. You're risking either a certain level of pay, certain level of, because even to move from one place to another in Accra, to go and do something that you're not going to be paid for, you're risking a whole lot of things. You're risking, if you're living with parents, you're risking, some form of verbal abuse from them. You're risking, or from your brothers or sisters, whatever. And at the same time, already I think we can put it down on the table as one of the things that we can help, we can accept as part of the challenges that comes with volunteering, that that there's a certain level of risk that comes with it, but you still decide to go for it. So there must be something bigger driving you to want to go to do that. Charlene, you talked about wanting to go into the diplomatic service eventually, and of course you've done Arabic. So the Arabic is something, do you think that you may have pursued that if you had not done Arabic? How central, in your view, is the role of language in
the diplomatic service?
In the diplomatic service.
Well, I feel like it's an asset. It's really just an addition. Okay. It boosts your expertise, and then it allows you to reach certain areas that you wouldn't have reached if you didn't have that language. But initially I would have pursued law. Okay. Based on my opportunities at the university, I got to study Arabic, and I decided to take a different path, and that is why I am heading towards the diplomatic service. I would be exposed, obviously. I have had some experience with Middle Eastern countries because I spent a year abroad studying Arabic, and that gave me some exposure. But I don't know if that is really where I want to head. I don't know. Middle Eastern countries would be a terrain I would want to be in, but that might not be the only space I would want to be in. My interests, however, are in tourism, arts and culture. So even though I am trying to head towards a diplomatic service, that is also a terrain I would want to be in, because I feel like I have some expertise there as well. Yeah. Okay,
but I think it's fair to say that probably the language has also taken you far. And I'm sure it will take you even further in the context of volunteering, because Arabic is not it's not something that we all speak in an English-speaking country like Ghana. So if the Arabic people who are here need your services, you may be volunteering it, but at the same time, ultimately, it will lead to something.
Actually, for the AfCFTA Policy Network, I'm going to be a translator. I'll be helping with the there's the media side of it, and we have a radio show, Trade Africa, and for each episode there'll be a summary which I'll be doing a translation for into Arabic. So definitely my use of the language is very
and of
instrumental.
Course, we could stretch that further to say that in the event that, let's say, the AfCFTA Secretariat also starts operating in January 2021, there's obviously going to be need for translators, people coming from who will need, and by virtue of your volunteering as well, that service could be extended there as well. So definitely. I think we've talked about risk, and we've spoken to the issue of language as well, how language can probably also take you, enhance your volunteering profile, because when you look at volunteering schemes like the ECOWAS volunteer scheme, the AU volunteer scheme as well, a lot of the people who have been through that, some of whom I know, have gone far and are still with the AU as volunteers, but being paid a salary because of the languages that they had. So clearly, one of the takeaways from this show would be that it's important to pay attention to language, whether it's very good English alone or whether it's a foreign language. Let's move the conversation further a bit about, so here you are as volunteers. You're not going to be volunteers forever. You have a certain level of skill. You decided not to stay at home and just, be applying for jobs indefinitely. How do you survive? How do you manage? What little things are you doing along the side to make sure that you keep body and soul together to make sure that even as you're not earning a salary, you're able to? This is important so that we can also help encourage others out there who may feel the need that, okay, fine, I have these skills, I have the degree or whatever, but what can I do in the meantime? Can my brother, can my parents support me a little to be able to, pursue this volunteering thing whilst I look for a bigger position?
Okay, so the thing about the youth nowadays is a lot of us are hoping that the government will give us jobs, but then
why? There's no government jobs.
Well, let me finish. But then there's the thing where we have to come up with ways to make ends meet no matter what. Okay. And so some of us have gone into entrepreneurship, but my main aim for going into entrepreneurship was not just because I needed the money. I actually have a passion for arts and culture, which is why I have a business which focuses on using raw materials, natural products to create things. So as you can see, there's wood, there's metal, we use a lot of thread and very little plastic. Very little plastic as possible. Yeah. So that business is what I run currently. And so I shouldn't have said
earning you money?
I shouldn't have said I'm unemployed. So I'm employed.
Okay, you're a manager.
I'm employed myself.
You're a manager.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that's what I use to keep myself going. And it's actually been lucrative so far. So I guess that I can encourage people to find a way to make ends meet by starting up something on their own. Look for something you're very good at, look into the market, see what people really need, and come up with an idea that you can use to make money for yourself. That is good for a volunteer because then you can combine volunteering and then still survive. Because if you're also on a full-time job, you might not have enough time for volunteer work. Yeah. So that can be conflicting.
Yes. Okay. So when we're going to take a break in a minute, then when we return, we'll come to you, Audrey, to complement those. So we'll be right back. All right, so welcome back from the break. So today we're discussing volunteerism, African Continental Free Trade Area, and Agenda 2063. Not necessarily in that order, but a mixture of that, but with a high focus on volunteerism. The reason being that, there are causes that are bigger than ourselves. A lot of people may turn to, religion, go into the monastery and, offer their services to God. That's some kind of volunteerism in their own way. Some of us will have to go through some kind of high water before we get there. But the point is everyone and their own, motivation. And we broached the issue in this conversation with our two guests that there are certain factors that are always running when we talk about volunteerism. One of them is a certain level of risk. You are risking something in order to volunteer. And then we also broached the issue of a skill. A key particular skill being language, because if you have language, whether it's English you speak well, because if you speak English well, you have learnt it well, you can teach. and you are volunteering your time. If you speak a foreign language very well, all the better, because it means that you are not just your own language, mother tongue that you have, but you can also go and, help other people who do not understand that language, understand it a lot better. So the skills are the major focus. But there are other things always at play. And I think Charlene and Audrey are helping us understand a little bit more the volunteering, given their backgrounds. And I understand you, Audrey, I think you wanted to help complement something that Charlene was saying about the entrepreneurship bit. Yeah.
Not so much the entrepreneurship bit. I'm not in the same position as Charlene. I haven't left university and I'm not looking for a job per se. But I wanted to speak to that because I think that's a key thing to remember. Even if you have a first-class degree from a university, there are certain skills that you won't learn from a book.
Yes.
So you have a fantastic degree, you've done very, very well, but you need some experience.
Yes.
And sometimes this volunteering can be the stepping stone to gain that experience that you need.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't really be seen as... I know we all need money, and of course, when you're in university, you're thinking of that white-collar job that you're going to come out and get and earn some huge dollars. And then sadly, someone says, "Well, why don't you do volunteerism?" And you're thinking, "And not get any money." What do you mean? All this studying I've done. But I think it's important to look at that as a stepping stone. It's an opportunity for you to gain experience, gain expertise, meet people, the networking, all of those things are crucial. And I think it's also a necessary learning step to actually get into that, because AfCFTA is huge. So whatever you studied, it would apply somewhere within the AfCFTA arena. So you will get a placement at some stage. But I think it's good to view it as a stepping stone to get to where you want to get to. I mean, I grew up in an environment where volunteerism was almost an expectation. I mean, at school, we will go and do community service work. Even recently with this COVID-19, my brother-in-law spent 6 months working giving out. They were doing food packs for different communities.
Wow.
Wasn't being paid anything for it, but it was, for him, it's almost like I am given something. It's something that I'm doing. And it was natural for him. It wasn't something that anybody had to plead with him to do. It's something that he did because he felt the need to do it. And I think that maybe that's something that, because it's not something you can do it's not something you do on a full-time basis. And I think it's perhaps even to an extent maybe a little irresponsible if you have responsibilities and you're doing full-time volunteerism when you have a family to support. But I think everybody can give something when it comes to volunteerism to achieve that bigger picture of AfCFTA and Agenda 2063.
Go ahead.
To add to what she's saying, so the thing about the youth is, people are looking for jobs and all that. The thing about applying for jobs is you see that they've written 5 years experience, 6 years experience.
Where do you get that experience from?
Where am I supposed to go and carry the experience from? Where am I supposed to get it from? So I think that, of course, volunteering gives you the opportunity to do that. You can volunteer. The thing about volunteering too is you can volunteer across many. So then you can get experience from various organizations. I'm volunteering with another organization for street children, and we take care of. We don't take care of street children. We cater for their needs as very little, but then we are able to give as much as we can. There's education, there's outreach programs. It's called the Shroot Foundation, but So then my point is, you can volunteer across various organizations and then accumulate all those years, and which can make your profile look really good in the end for whichever job you are seeking to apply for in the future. So
that's a very important point. And I want to touch on something, Audrey, you mentioned, which was the networks and the networking. I think social capital is something that we cannot underestimate. And I think it's something that people who shy away from volunteerism also forget that you will gain, because nothing beats knowing that you can pick up the phone and have X number of contacts who can deliver something for you in a way that if you had not gotten into that space, it would not be there. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about some of your experience with the kind of networks that you have had over the years due to the volunteerism work that you've done, and same with you, Charlene. So we'll start off with you. Audrey?
So, for instance, this project that I worked on, the NGO where we used to fly to communities, I came into contact with so many different people. I ended up on the Bilharzia schistosomiasis steering committee. So that was a country project where it was almost like a round table discussion. We were looking at how to reduce bilharzia in Ghana and eventually eradicate it. And so that put me in contact with some key people in Noguchi and around the country. We set up a conference, we sat down, we discussed how we're going to take this forward. But just being within that NGO exposed me to so many different people. It exposed me to different communities as well. And some of the communities, even when I stopped working with the NGO, I still used to visit the communities. Up to now, they still call me because I was trying to get their children to stay in school. So I became involved in that as well. And they would phone me now and tell me, you know, so-and-so has finished school and they're now doing this and they're looking for a job. And I've kept in contact with a lot of them. So for me, those contacts and those experiences are invaluable, and it's something I would do over and over and over again.
And I'm sure it's something that you would highly recommend as well. Charlene.
Okay, so we had for Shoot Foundation there was a project, an educational project where we picked a few street children and then had to fund their education. Recently, one of them just wrote the BEC and we're waiting to see his results, but according to the teachers, it's been very good. We've met, so basically our contacts have been with some teachers, some institutional heads. I mean, all those connections for me have been very good. And I feel that going forward, if I needed something, these are people I could easily fall on for any support. So yeah, basically that's been it. It's been good. And I think that there's more that we can get from this. There's more contacts we can make. And for anybody who wants to go into volunteering, you would know that connections are key. So then definitely you shouldn't think twice about having to volunteer.
Okay, I guess then in wrapping up, we've already identified 3 things. So we started off with looking at the risk. Then also we talked about skills. So language being one of them. Language is not the only thing, but it's one of them. Now we're talking about networking. In your final minutes and your final wrap-up as takeaways, what would you identify as the key thing about volunteering that you would like to tell the viewers across the continent to recommend to them over and over again? What would, from the experiences that you've had, what would you like to give as a takeaway, Charlene?
Can I even draw attention to Agenda 2063? I feel that volunteering is necessary, especially for Agenda 2063, because in 2063, the people who would be there, people who would be there to see 2063, half of them are not the ones sitting in their main positions right now.
Of course.
It will be the youth. So if the youth decide they're going to lose their attention and not pay attention to the fact that 2063 is ours, and the fact that we need to put a lot of effort into making those goals come into a reality, then it will be very bad for us, because the ones who are sitting there right now and taking all those decisions won't be there to see it. We really need to work towards it. And so giving our time, giving our effort will be very important. And then also, if we put a lot of effort into volunteering, we won't have a lot of time for other idle things, a lot of complaining about things that are going wrong around us, fighting, all the crime and things. I mean, a lot of effort would have been directed into very important things and how to achieve those goals on Agenda 2063. So I think really we should volunteer. It's necessary.
Great. Finally with you, Audrey.
I totally agree with what Charlene is saying. And I think that Agenda 2063 is for the future generations. And to achieve the Africa that we want, which is what Agenda 2063 is all about, sacrifices will need to be made, and they will need to be made across board. And I think the younger ones in particular need to sit up, and we need to look and see where we actually fit into this. We all need to have a collective responsibility for achieving the goal of Agenda 2063. It's not about a certain group of people. It really is about collective mindset of everyone and wanting to achieve the final goal of Agenda 2063. And it will take sacrificing. And sacrificing is volunteerism. And there are personal gains as well. So it's not just about the future generation. It's about what you can gain now. So Yes.
All right, fantastic. So on that note, and for all those of you who are watching out there, I guess you've taken a lot of notes from today's edition. Usually we come and talk big English and, you know, different things, and we go our way. But I think today we wanted to make it a little bit practical for you out there to understand that even though we're talking about Agenda 2063, the people who came up with Agenda 2063 obviously knew that by the time that Agenda 2063 comes, they would most likely not be around. Their grandchildren are the ones who are going to take the helm. And therefore, who are the people who need to carry that vision? It is you right now who has to carry that vision. And in whichever way, shape or form that you can do it, whether it's volunteering with an international network, whether it's with an NGO, whether it's with street children, the thing is you are contributing to the Africa you want, because street children are also people who need to be taken care of, and people in villages need to be taken care of. That's all also part of the Africa we want. So we just want to remind you, as you pick up your copy of Agenda 2063 and read through the 7 aspirations, remember that Aspiration 7, as I keep explaining, is about the AU becoming a global player. And with the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat being here, there's so many opportunities for everyone, whether you're youth, whether you're my grandparents, or whether you're, someone who feels that he doesn't have many skills. There's so many opportunities. So what are you going to do to make sure that you also contribute to that vision of Agenda 2063 and the larger goal, the larger market that has come to us through the hard work of a lot of people who know that they will not be here to enjoy it? What are you going to do? That's the question you should ask yourself. And once you're doing that and you're picking up your copy of the book, I also encourage you to check out the programs of AAU TV, tv.aau.org. You find out all the beautiful programs. They're doing a lot of great work here. We want to say thank you to the production crew for the great work that they do every single day. And thank you very much. We hope to have another exciting topic for you next time we come to you. Keep sending us your comments and have a great day. Goodbye.